Welcome back. Today we have an extra special treat for everybody. My guest today is truly a titan of business. This gentleman has spent a couple of decades in facility management where he absolutely crushed it. He was on, the 40 under 40 list. He was always, he was always in the news. He was always, leading the industry. He's since taken that passion and has become a owner and investor in OG Cannabis. This is something that he is truly passionate about, something that has helped him in his life personally. He wasn't always able to talk about it. He's able to talk about it now. He's also a dad. He's a friend. He is a good man. He is a motivator. He is a giddy up. My guest today, Steve Dunker.
Wow. Thank you. That's really kind. It's hard because I'm actually second in my family. My wife is much more successful than I am. So, I always know my place when I'm at home. So it's interesting to have it presented out into the ether that way. So thank you very much.
What does your wife do?
My wife is a corporate attorney.
Yeah, they can they can be big time. Those guys. They can what they're able to do and how with the what I've seen, just on the small scale with my business, how necessary attorneys are to make things move. It's like, whoa.
And good ones, which is really, identifying that is like trying to find a person who works in sales and a person who can develop business. It's not the same corollary, I suppose. So, that's I'm very blessed. I am super proud, and this is I definitely married up, so I would call it that.
Hey, brother, me too. In more ways than one. That's for certain.
Yes. I would say in every way. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the goal to a good life is finding a woman who knows how to make you better. I really do. I mean, it's been paramount in my life.
Yeah. For a partner, if you can find somebody who is, strives to make you a better human being and, is constantly, helping you improve and grow, that's the giddy up. Right
and by
there.
example, right? It isn't something where someone can tell you to change. What you're doing is modifying your behavior to match. And when you're surrounding yourself with people who are better than you, that's the natural, that's the natural path, and one that I probably fought a little bit, but age is a wonderful, barometer of where you were. So,
you fought when you say you fought the being around better people. You want to just be the best. You're saying at all times because you are the company you keep. I could not agree more with you, man. That is so true.
Just more of a youthful ego. Selfish mindset. I think that's the hardest thing that men figure out in their 20s. Hopefully they figure it out, but I didn't want anybody telling me to do anything, like it was more of that control aspect or the lack that I wanted influenced on me. I didn't want to change anything. I thought I was perfectly fine. It isn't until you get the outside perspective that you can kind of mirror and look and be like, ooh, maybe I should work on that, or I could definitely be more patient or more just kind in general and not as selfish. I mean, I think that's fatherhood changes that significantly, but a young married couple are still trying to find their own identity, and I think that's and women find it first. They're just, you're still functioning on a 15-year-old brain at about 27. You don't really feel the difference other than the knowledge pool that you have assessed over that time. But like my father, my wife hates when I tell this story, so I probably shouldn't, but I'm gonna. So my father used to tell me things like he was just these little tidbits of wisdom, like how to manage stress, how to manage your mind. He grew up in a completely way more difficult upbringing. I mean, I grew up in La La Land and compared to what, he had to deal with, large family, city, that kind of thing, and all the different trials and tribulations he saw his brothers and sisters go through. But he would always give these little tidbits. And I remember him saying, don't work hard at relationships. Like, don't tie yourself to the first girl you date. And I think what he was really saying and what he then later explained was it's going to hit you in the face when it's real and you won't be able to walk away and you won't be able to have a that escapism of what young men seem to have with communication, right? You'll have to do it. And so I took that as, I'll be single for the rest of my life. This is great. And then when I met my wife, I mean, it was within, moments. It felt like I was like, oh, that's different. She's different, and she was successful and smart. And I knew she was smarter than I was. I knew she was a better person. I mean, right off the bat, I was like, well, this is different. And, that's been the driving force of any success I have. I couldn't even fathom having it without her. That's just a fact. So
that's an amazing thing to have somebody who pushes you that much. And like you said, I agree with men. We are, I mean, I think with anybody, like when like when it hits you in the face, it hits you in the face. And I wasn't, no one gave me that advice or no one bestowed that upon me. So I don't know if I like wasted time in relationships, but I had pretty like deep, intimate relationships when I was younger, I like you said, I don't know, maybe I would have been better off spending that time on myself. And like, so I think it is decent. It is decent advice. You're saying, well, spend time. And you want to know what though, like, you seem like a guy who can really cultivate relationships. You seem like somebody who, values that and understands that. So did he just mean romantically or did he mean platonically as well?
Solely in that category.
Yes, that's what I thought.
That was where he was.
Don't waste time chasing tail now.
Right.
Or waste time chasing tail just chase the tail.
Don't invest
and
your mental equity into something that isn't
going to be real.
Yeah. And honestly, I did that totally the wrong way, I'm sure. It wasn't like I had some wisdom that was bestowed on me, so I was going to apply it to my everyday life. What it said to me was, don't have a steady girlfriend. Like, right. That's what I heard. He was giving a different message. Mm-hmm. It was the aftermath that I looked back and saw, oh, he was so right. Because I wasn't trying, I wasn't looking, having a great time, making money, all those things are there. And then bang, I was like, whoa, and it was, accelerated in such a pace that, in today's day and age would look foolish. We were married with a child a year later. Yeah, it came like that fast.
After you met.
Yeah. So
how old were you?
Oh, I was 26.
26?
So I had,
She your age?
She was a year younger.
You're younger, 26, 25.
Yeah, she would definitely want me to say that. But yeah, it was just it was easy, and she made it easy. And I was so interested in, it was, conversation. I was like, whoa, I wasn't looking for conversation, it just wasn't what I was doing. And again, when you find somebody that can spark your interest creatively and just as she made me want to be a dad, all those things that I never really, it just wasn't something I was putting my mental time into. I was trying to kill, I was trying to make something of myself. I wanted to be in the biggest room at the, with the biggest players. And how do I get there? What do I have to do? And, I would say a lot of that can be attributed to, having a good conversation at night about what not to do, right? That's really helpful. And, her litigious background allows, me to ask a lot of really poignant questions that, probably get a better point of feedback than, the traditional conversation. So.
That's really cool, man. So like she'll give you, like you said, she's going to like literally let you know, like when you ask her something and you want clarity on something, she's going to give you the clarity that you're looking for.
Oh, and give you the worst case scenario. She's going to tell you what could go wrong, right? So, and again, that's not something I don't really function.
Is she a litigator?
She was.
She was. Okay.
Phenomenal litigator.
So it's in her blood.
Look, I never met an argument I didn't want to have before I met her too.
In fact, yeah.
I've curbed that significantly. I was like, oh, I like to be the, devil's advocate here. I'll just play the other side just because it's a fun conversation. She was, I wasn't winning. So, again, if you can't beat them, join them. So I think that was the actual, that's what I got from it.
Yeah, man. And too, then you said fatherhood, kids come along and they change you, my Lord, I have a 22-month-old son and this guy, he changes everything. So.
And it's progressive. I believe that. Like, when I saw my son born, of course, it was this great day, and I was but I didn't have the same connection that my wife had because I hadn't, had that physical component to it yet, where they're attached, and you're you're the third wheel, and how do you figure that out, right?
Yeah.
I liked attention, I liked, the center of the room thing, I loved it, so when you have a child and now all of a sudden you're trying to, navigate who you are again, you're trying to figure it out again because you've never done that. It's just a whole new thing. And it progresses into a scenario of, you love your child. Well, it progresses into an obsession, and one that I'm happily, going to ride. Because if I were to say, what is anything that you want to be in life? If I had to go back now, it would be, it's dad,
number one out of all of it. That's who you'd want to be as dad.
It's the greatest job in the world.
Oh man, it's unbelievable. I'm looking at my phone because my wife sent me something the other day that was incredible. That is exactly saying what you said in regards to the jealousy. And so like husbands, it's like something about how husbands, they don't realize that, like, the wife, they get so jealous of the relationship, sure, that the wife has with the son at first, because they don't realize, they're like, oh shit, I'm not center of attention anymore. I'm not top cat,
No, you're not.
Right.
You're less than the dog after that.
Right, exactly. You're less than the dog, dude. And so it was so funny when, when she sent that to me, and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. But like, of course I can't find it. And it's like funny because I never, I never take my phone out on the show, but I was like, this is like literally, it's so perfect. The internet's cool that way.
It is funny. Well, it's probably listening to us, so it'll pop up.
It's going to come back.
You're going to get a bunch of dad quotes popping through your feed soon.
Yeah.
So, no, but that's fine too, because I don't remember sometimes like, oh, I really need that. And I say it out loud just so the ad will come pop on my phone in the next 5 days. Like that's a real thing. Be like, wow. I mean, that's...
It's 100% a real thing that it happens in terms of the phones listening to us and then throwing ads at us, 100%. But you're the first person that I've said that is like intentionally throwing it out there too.
Why not use it? I mean, if they're going to listen, I'm going to bring it to my benefit, right? So how can I get around that, right?
Do you hate that they listen though?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I look, it goes against everything foundationally, freedom, that we, present, to the populace that we have, and what I find the overreach of our government to be probably the number one biggest problem of the last 70 years, and it's a national industrial complex, and all, again, we made war profitable, and when you do that, it's the same thing with pharma, right? As soon as you make healthcare profitable and let them advertise on TV like we do as the only country in, the world.
Yeah, it's New Zealand.
Yeah. Oh, is it New Zealand as well?
Yeah.
Great. So.
Right, America Junior.
Yeah, like, there's no way it's just like corporate America too, right? When you're beholden to the bottom dollar as the driver of the decision, then work life, community, and the employees that you have, you can't present we care, because you don't. And if you did, you'd find a different way to navigate through, because honestly, I think the bottom line, the cost value of XYZ in a company is lost when you don't have the betterment of the employee and think of what that value is to the company in the future. And again, it's unquantifiable, so you can't really put a number on it. But what you see with great companies have great culture. And when you have great culture, you have a successful business. So maybe AI will tell us how we quantify that. Maybe that's what's coming. I don't know, but I know that it's broken. And I would say the same thing about listening to us, and then the whistleblower who tells us you're listening to us has to leave the country. It's like, no, that's the point of the whistleblower, so, and again, I don't need to go too far down in that scenario, but it really is, it's a huge problem. But again, I can't stop it. I can adjust. I think it's more of a problem for my kids than it is for me now. And again, I don't do anything wrong, so I guess that's probably a benefit. But you're definitely giving up a right. I mean, you're in your home, and
Yeah, you should be able to say what you want and do what you want, and the control level is just like absolutely out of this world. And you're right, I'm a lot more afraid for my kids who just grow up in it and don't like. I understand what it was like before, and when it's just constant at you and it's now become subconscious, and that's actually the culture now. Like it's gonna be really funky, In
that they don't care. They've created not most people just don't care. They know what's happening. It doesn't really affect them, but there's clearly an agenda with saving all of that information. And maybe we don't know what that is yet, but it costs a lot of money to record every single conversation in the world.
Yeah, right.
And I'm pretty sure that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely what's happening. And they, the control level that's going to come from it is just going to be really... really like with your kids, like being a father, like you gotta, you want to be really strict and have your rules and stuff, but like you leave room for the kid to make mistakes and to do things on his own and for learn. And there's shit you never want to know about as a parent. Like, as long as they're being safe and they're doing their thing and they're doing everything you taught them, you don't want to know about it, right? And you want to know that they're out there making good decisions, and that's going to be taken away, because like it's already being taken away. Like it's good. And they do it a lot of times, like in the name of safety. And yes, maybe the world is definitely getting worse, but like every kid who has a phone now is tracked on their phone with their location. And it's like, that's good because it's good. You know where your kid is. You're not going to get them lost, but it's also really bad because then you don't know where your kid is. And it's really bad because you are constantly, controlling your kid and they're not able to make any of these like good decisions. And,
It's funny you say that because, again, I have 4 children, so...
4 boys, right?
3 boys and a daughter.
3 boys and a daughter. 3 boys
older, and then my daughter is 9. But with my, 13-year-old, because they have the Life 360, know where everyone is, it's a wonderfully reassuring tool as a parent.
Yeah, it really is.
It truly is, because when they get their license, I think that used to be, the hardest point in parental adolescence. Again, I remember my father talking to me about this, I used to drop you off and you'd be somewhere for 6 hours and then I'd pick you up, but I knew you were there. And now when you say you're going to that same place, I don't know if you went to New York and came back. And he's like, it's just a different mindset of not having the control narrative over your child, which you've had the whole time. And now we have it, but I didn't want to be on 360. I don't do anything wrong, but I don't want anybody knowing what I'm doing, just for my own personal... I call it selfishness. I don't know. But I didn't want to be in the game. So I'll very often ask my 13-year-old, where's your brother? And he's like, he's at Dairy Queen, Dad. So that, but that's...
So you don't have it on your phone?
I don't. And it's on, my wife makes fun of me and stuff. And when group texts start amongst the family, that just go too long. I didn't realize when I removed myself from it that I was removing myself from the whole chain. But I kept it was my brother-in-law, all the kids, but they were just going back and forth for freaking hours. And it was ding to ding. I'm take myself off of that. And my wife said to me, she's like, you took yourself off our family group text? And I'm like, well, just for that conversation. She's like, no, you removed yourself permanently. And I'm like, oh man. But honestly, I
love that you think that you thought it was just for that conversation.
I just don't want to. I want this. You can
silence you can silence the notifications. You've learned that sense.
Again, let's not pretend I'm some technical wizard. Again, I have children that educate me on these things, but I never turn any noise on my phone on. I don't want it to vibrate. I don't want it to buzz. I don't want it to take me out of whatever. I hate cell phones. I don't hate anything in the world. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate I can't get away from it either.
The control. Fucking the control.
Yeah, I'm not like some guy who can be like, you know what, I'm going to put that down. No, it's with me. And I sit there and watch my children just eat it. They're all over it.
They love it too, huh? There's no getting around that, huh?
How could you not? I
know you're making it detrimental to them, right? If you didn't, I think,
If you told me when I was a kid that I could put a TV in my pocket with 150 channels, it would have been magic. Mm-hmm. And I would have signed up all day long, every day, wherever it was. And I get it. I just really want to find a balance, because it's...
I may not have. When I was 14, 15, 16, if you said hey, you can go watch TV or carry around this TV with you, or you can go play with your friends and go play ball and go play wiffle ball with your friends. go play wiffle ball with your friends, and maybe there's a couple chicks there, and like that. I'm choosing that 10 out of 10 times.
And I think they will, and I think they would do that. But in between being up at bat while they're standing there, they're here.
I know, right?
So
yeah.
I don't think they get away from it. Obviously, they don't enough. But I think that visual learning thing, they're so aware. They're up to speed on world issues. They are. My 13-year-old is as smart as any person I've ever talked to, just on how he can carry a conversation with wit and subject matter and, have just enough to be funny with it, right? Probably, in a wrong way, whatever that is, but funny kid. So I just, looking at it now, I'm like, I think I would have always had it, right? Think of car rides when you were a kid and just how painful those were. Like when I got in a car and someone told me we were going to the Cape or something, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do for tour? Because of my natural inclination of, hyperactivity and ADD and all these things that, I probably was undiagnosed with. Sitting in a car still, was
it's horrible.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah.
The worst thing you could do to me.
Yeah.
So if you had given me, I'm going to watch a movie while I'm in the car.
Yeah, the car's a giddy up. It's a nice little treat for the car for sure.
And communication,
Yeah, communication's nice. But it's also like decreased communication because like you're in the same room and you're on your phones instead of talking to each other.
It's not interpersonal communication. It's communication.
Yeah, right.
So you're not getting anything out of that,
Mm-hmm.
Not to use my children, my son has this tendency when you do talk to my 13-year-old, when you talk to him on the phone and he's done talking, he just hangs up. And I was like, that's weird. But he doesn't talk on the phone a lot.
He doesn't get it.
He hasn't grown up pulling it off, saying, hello, hi, who's this? Oh, it's Janet. Can I talk to your mom? Okay, great. Hold on one second. That's never been part of their life.
Incredible. So he just hangs up the phone.
Like he's like, I'll be like,
normal.
hey, Nathan, are you coming to, I'm going to pick you up from practice, whatever, right? And he'll be like, yeah, I'm done at 7:30. Because that's how they text.
Yeah, right.
You don't say bye in a text.
No.
You don't say, well, see you later. It ends with the message. And
you don't do that unless you're like 80 years old.
right. So I think that's
I love the people that sign every text and start every text with a greeting and a
hello, comma.
Hello, comma.
I
next
still
line.
do it. It depends on who I'm texting. Because
bro,
that's-
100%.
That's the, if it's important to me,
Yeah.
I'm gonna present, I hope all is well with you and yours.
Yeah.
Then I will begin my message.
In other countries, a lot of times I talk to my friends who live, in other places internationally, and like they come up to me and they're like, yo, if I tried to go in my village and I tried to get something from someone and I just like straight up asked them without being like, yo, hey, how was your day first? Or like you're just asking them one question about what's going on, they would tell me to get the fuck out of there. They would think, they would not. It's so American to do that. To not have like gestures and the text messaging is just. So that's incredible that your son is just like, hey, no wasted time on
super efficient, and that's the bite world they've grown up in. It's like that, and I envy it too a little bit, because gosh, what I loved all this info. I was always in interest of I wanted to consume, like if I liked something, I wanted to know everything about it. Right. And that wasn't everything because I won't pretend I was, uber studious. I did what my father expected me to do. Knowing that was the game, right? He was big on that. He used to talk a lot about play the game. It's a game. Communication is a game. Professional work life is a game because he knew I liked games. So that's how we presented it. And I brought that to my children too. I probably created competitive, problems, because, when my oldest son was young, he was reading early. All the credit to my wife again. This is not like, I'm pumping out geniuses here. So, but he was reading early but he didn't like it. Like he didn't want to do it. And then I started timing it on the stove with flashcards. Like I'm going to give you 30 words. And you have to read all 30 words and I'll time it for a minute or whatever the, timing mechanism was. And then he loved it. And then he was like, bang, bang, bang. It was on, right?
Oh, cool.
When he used to come outside and I'm mowing the lawn or something, like, I don't know, he's like, let's play. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to have you run. Here's the game. You're going to run around the house and I'm going to time you. I'd finish mowing the lawn. He'd come around about, a minute later, and I was like, 48 seconds. Why don't you try it again? He'd do this thing for an hour, and it got me all the stuff that I wanted to do. And he's just running around the house thinking we're playing a game together. So, fatherhood is about, there's a lot of trickery, and trying to get, what you want out of the child or your time.
And I think gamifying parenthood, gamifying it, I think that gamifying fatherhood, I think that that's a really cool thing, to talk about.
It's a great t-shirt. Gamify everything, because honestly, games are fun. You learn or you win. I don't like losing, that's never been the...
Yeah. If you don't want to call it losing, I guess that's you are losing, but you lose or you technically you're not losing because you're growing, right? I love that mindset. I love that
law, and I knew that from athletics. Like, you learned way more from losing than winning. Winning was the party, but you learned what was wrong with you, whether it was mentally or how you approached it, or physically, you're not fast enough, good enough, jump high, whatever that is, but. You definitely learn. And it also, that's human nature. It allows people to find their lanes, right? I'm not as good at you at this. So, but I like this and I could do this, right? So I'm going to try that little variable or that little avenue of where I can go with it. But
yeah, it does. It helps people kind of become a little bit more niche and finding who they are as a person. I think that that's pretty cool. I haven't thought about that yet. I'm really hyper focused on how I can help my son and any kids, the future kids that I have, to help them best see their value. And that's really what I'm here to do, is to help everybody see what their best value is, and so that they can then present it to the world.
Let them fail. Let them fail.
Yep.
Let them feel hard, and be hard. My two oldest sons are in high school now, and that conversation came up of, look, I love you guys more than anything in the world. But it's not my job to be your friend for the next 4 years. My job is to make sure that you come out of this, a better person and ready to go when we, take the reins off. And I'd love to be your friend through this. That would be great. Let's make it easy type of thing. That would be awesome, but not the job. And especially as they get into high school, and what a weird world that is right now of... trying to figure out how to manage what makes sense in your head versus what is being presented at, the administrative level, right? The things kids have to navigate through today didn't exist when we were going, again, I'm older than you, but when I was going through school, we didn't even have cell phones. So, looking at it now and understanding they have access to all the information in the world. That is in your pocket. You have all of the world's information.
Changes everything. Yeah, it literally changes everything. And my experience, I was in 8th grade when I got my first phone, and you could send 50 text messages a month. Text and receive. So you could send and text 50, and you're fucking so stressed that someone's going to please don't text me. I can't open it. My dad's going to fucking shit. It's 30 cents a fucking message, please.
I was so anti-text. And when it was on the flip phone and people were texting, I'm like, why would I do this? I'll just call you. I remember describing it as reverse technology. What, are we going to just start going long form and start mailing letters now? Why are we typing words again? It didn't resonate with me. I don't talk on the phone. Rarely, right? Business related, whatever. My wife, children, that's about the extent.
I don't love it. There's something about this right now, something about you hearing my voice, me hearing your voice, the sound travels, I don't mind it. I like that we have it. You said it's increasing communication, and that's a good thing, but I wish that, and I think maybe it will get realized at some point, and we will go back to, when I try to do, you know what I try to do a lot now? Especially with my kids and my wife, and people, I video chat. I'm always video chatting with them, because we have that technology available to us, and when you're away, your kid, he actually feels like I'm there, he gives me kisses through the phone, he sees me, so it's oh, cool, dude, this is a giddy up, so I agree with you. I'm the guy who is I could talk to anybody, pick up the phone for anybody, tell me to call the president, I'd call him and we'd have a conversation. Sure. But I've gotten so far away from it, but I always tell myself, like, I don't know if this is the best. I should just call, and I shouldn't, sometimes even the guy who could call the president would have anxiety. I'm like, what? No. Then I just make the phone call, and of course it's like, oh shit, why did I even think that? And it's like, because the culture is changing, the world is changing.
A phone call getting picked up by somebody means you're probably, either you're a stranger in your business relationship or you really know that person. Like, it's a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Many a times my phone is rang and I'm thinking, why doesn't this person just text me? We're not phone people.
Right.
It's the guy who would ask you to move. Help me move. Like,
yeah, right.
Like, that might be your phone call list now,
Yeah, it's so true. It's so much more dangerous to pick up the phone calls. You don't want to fucking help somebody move, right?
I no.
I've done it 1,000 times, but fuck me, man.
I'm 47. That's a young man's game.
Yeah,
No,
exactly. Right. I'm 34. I think I'm past it too.
You still probably look, if you still have friends that are moving,
Oh, you're right. I'm still in it.
Yeah, right. So if you got friends who are still building that's what it is. My friends are settled.
Good point. Right.
Fortunately, I'd be like, call a company.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'm not moving bureaus.
Right.
But yeah, of course.
Call me afterwards. I'll have some beers after.
I look through school. I mean, I think I lived in 5 different places, 5 different years.
Yeah, but I've helped everybody move.
Sure.
I'm the mover.
Sure. Yeah. Look, that was disadvantages of in my younger days being a big guy.
Yeah, right.
They were like, Steve will help us live.
Yeah, right. And being just nice and communicative, and people are, it's okay. Giddy up, they'll help.
I find that to be I do a little exercise where and this is, call it fairly recent. I can almost look at my life in stages, of what changed, what happened, why, and where it goes. It wasn't very, I don't know. I just ended up here. Like, I can remember specific scenarios of what were the engines to what was happening, and whether or not I wanted to get in and drive or not. But every night, and this is new, and my friends, I always think about this, like people listening to me talk that would know me or, knew me. I will describe it that way, right? I posted something about like meditation and where it's, how it's really helped me. I mean, it just breathing in general and finding focus. And I would have never done that. I would have never talked about it. I would have thought you're crazy. Because you know why? Everything was good for me and I was doing it totally different. I was, hungry and fighting and we're going and we're going to take it. Changed my life. And then I got really into that. Like, okay, why is this working so well, right? Whether that was, general thought manifestation, whatever. I wanted to know everything. And because it was awesome and I was feeling different and things were just working out better. And I'm always going to find that energy of path, whatever's taking me there. I jump on. Now I do. But I say every night, I say 3 things that I am thankful for before I go to bed. It's a pain in the ass, super pain in the ass, because you can't use the same 3 things from the day before. Mm-hmm. So little exercise, read in this awesome book, plug to Alchemy of Imagination. Awesome. I also don't read, so I shouldn't say like, oh, I'm reading books all the time. This was a book my wife bought for me to read. So the thing it forces you to do during the day is find things to be thankful. I can't be like every night, I'm thankful for my wife, I'm thankful for my kids, I'm thankful for my job, right? Nope, can't use those again, right? So now you got to start searching. What am I thankful for? Cannabis has helped me a lot with this. But in the scenario of, let's say, oh, that guy just cut me off. I'd like to follow them home and make.
I'd like to follow them home and kill them and kill their family.
I like, where your thoughts can go. Like, what is possibly wrong with this person that they hate me this much that they're going to impact my day to a point of just could have died, whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's a mind shift. And it didn't happen right away. I had to practice it. But if that person were to do that same thing to me today, I'd be like, I'm thankful I was able to let that person pull in front of me and they didn't hit me. Wow. And it's that simple. And it's not all the time. I can get angry with the best of them, I'm sure. But not as much, not as frequent, not as often. And it was probably my range of emotion. I used to joke around with my buddies. I was like, I have 2 emotions, fellas. I have happiness and anger. And everything funnels into one of those. If I'm sad, I'm angry. If I'm depressed, I'm angry. If I'm, like that was, but it was a vector. It was one or the other. I was not able to diagnose where those should go, but I knew those two things gave me resolution.
You weren't aware of what the feelings were, like how to feel the other feelings. Like they just, you knew how anger felt, you knew how happiness felt, and when the other ones, you just funneled them into them.
Yeah, and those were tools.
Yeah,
those were the two tools I
100%.
had. Those are the ones I knew how to use. I knew how to work with someone to make them happy, like me, whatever that was, and I knew if I was upset that you were going to know it and it was going to impact you. And once I started to lop off that side, because it was exciting, I never looked at it when we were younger as something that was a negative. My dad was a kid from Southie. They were all boxers and fighters and blah, blah. So we grew up in a world where some level of violence was permissible and acceptable, and that's just what it was. When I grew up and the coach was yelling at a kid's dad punches coach in the face and nobody ever talks about it. That's on CNN today. Yeah. Like those things didn't happen. Those things happened all the time in youth sports when I was growing up. I mean, just sheer madness. But it was the norm. That was how I took it. And, I was very fortunate with my father. My father was a singer and dancer, on and off Broadway for a few years, and had two sons who had no interest whatsoever in that and had some applicable skills athletically that he probably would have had too. He literally, was dancing and learning to box. Like that was as a kid in Southie, and all of his brothers and sisters, crazy world that they grew up in. But he was the youngest. So my nana was going to get him right. So he's the only one who went to parochial school, did all that. And sure enough, he's the only one who ever graduated from college, all those things.
Hell yeah.
Shout out to my dad. I like just the best.
He's with us here.
Like the best. And someone I talk to daily, even though he's not around anymore. I mean, I still have that.
His physical body's not here.
Yes. And what a killer that is. That's an adjustment of life.
Mm-hmm.
Children tell you you're a man. When you lose your dad, you know you are. And I think that's you don't have that sounding board, if that's something that you had previous in life. Everyone has a different relationship with their father. But for me, I was always searching for, I'll tell him what I did well so he can reassure me that I did it the right way. And he'd always have a tidbit, well, be careful. Or, maybe you could be a little nicer in that one, Steve, but he had a wonderful 30,000-foot view of the world, regardless of whatever issues he had growing up or whatever that was. He seemed to have figured it out. And, I'm forever thankful for that.
Yeah, man, to have a good mentor and to have a person like that, especially someone you said was a little bit different than you, it seems, and was able to kind of help, see. I grew up athletic, just played all the sports, grew up with some semblance of violence was definitely acceptable,
sure.
It's how it was. And, but I found out my adult life that I love to dance. I love to fucking dance, dude.
Really?
Bro, so I was at a concert the other day in Guilford.
Yep.
And I was dancing around so much, and so it impacts people. And so when I first went to go do this, I could speak in front of 10,000 people and be fine, no nerves. I would go and do this. I was going to just local bars, and I would eat. I would go, and I would almost throw up because I was so subconsciously nervous. Sometimes I would throw up. I'd have to run to the bathroom and throw up. But I wanted to keep dancing, and I don't drink alcohol, so I was like,
so you're forcing yourself,
myself to do this, and then by the the 10th time that I'm trying to do this, probably I find out that I can start breathing, and it controls this feeling. Like I said, breath work. I'm starting to learn this, and I go home, I tell my wife, I'm like, oh my god, I can, I'm following up with her after each time. I'm like, I can finally control it. I didn't throw up. I was dancing great, and she's like, yeah, dummy, it's called yoga. I've been trying to get you to go for 5 years.
Is that what they do there?
Yeah. And
I thought they just put their feet above their head in weird positions. No,
exactly.
I totally agree with you.
And so I went. So I went to yoga, man. And now, so at this concert the other night, people people will make fun of me. Guys will make fun of me because they see me and they dance and for one song. But then by the third song, everybody's always dancing with me. So I had to overcome that fear and that dejection to overcome. And now I can create so much happiness for other people and myself. So I'm in Guilford, this beautiful 9K arena. I don't know if you've been there. Of course, beautiful, the best arena in the world, Meadowbrook, Giddy Up, Bank, New Hampshire Pavilion. And I'm dancing around, and I have such an impact on people, man, that I got gifted a homemade bracelet. I got gifted a homemade Christmas ornament. I got gifted a guitar pick. The vocal coach for Dave Matthews was chasing me down and handed me a backstage pass. Then he, found me again, handed me a pristine set list.
I knew so many people there. I'm going to find out I'm going to ask them. I'm like, did you see the guy?
Did you see the guy?
That's my dude.
That's my dude. 100, bro. Seriously, ask them, and they will 100% say yes because they definitely saw me. Everybody saw me.
That's awesome.
Afterwards, they come into the.
They were in full OG gear, so you may have saw them then. No, I was like, we're gonna dress everybody up in OG gear that goes here.
Oh, I love it.
If I find out someone's going to something in public, somewhere, something, I'm like, we're throwing some gear at you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So ask them, and I bet they did. But it was such a beautiful thing to dance, and so now with my son, it's like I'm gonna be able to, if he wants to go in that direction, if he wants to go sport, whatever, both, I'll be there. I'll be a better dad because of it, and I got to do what I want to do. And now it's like, okay, eventually people are gonna pay me to dance. People will pay me to be around them and to bring them this happiness and this good energy, and it will be a part of my job. I know that most of us associate the weather getting chilly with flu and cold season, but here at Dr. BeeWell, we call it bad sugar season. As Americans, we generally eat like shit. During this time of year, with the holiday and other related stresses, those horrible eating practices tend to get kicked into overdrive. We offer a solution in the form of full-spectrum RSO infused raw local honey because we shouldn't be walking around eating nerd rope all day. Why not let the bees handle the heavy lifting that your sweet tooth demands? I think it's fair to say that most people know how vital strength training is for long-term health and fitness, but find it hard knowing where to start. I'm here to say that also included me, Dr. Steve. You want to make sure you're doing exercises correctly, you don't want to get hurt, and you have no idea how to structure a workout program to get the best results. I've been there. In fact, this is where I found myself a few months ago. That's where On Target Fitness comes in. At On Target, every client gets their own custom strength program, tons of individual attention in their unique small group format, and the common sense nutrition and health coaching necessary to make a lasting lifestyle upgrade. As a new member of On Target, I'm not only seeing major changes in my body, but also my overall quality of life. In the past, I've struggled with using proper form. Well, let me tell you, whether it's Coach Joe or Coach Ryan, they've got you covered with technique. Even movement patterns as simple as walking have improved since I've started. When I was working out by myself without a program, I was often lost and lacked the motivation to challenge myself. Not at On Target. The energy and support in the group dynamic is truly game-changing. I have so much fun every time I work out. If you're ready for lasting change, don't hesitate to schedule a complimentary strategy session at www.ontargetfit.com. During this session, you'll learn a lot, make a plan, and only move forward if it's right for your budget, schedule, and goals. I met with Coach Katie, and she was awesome. So please, if you need that giddy up back in your life, get on over to ontargetfit.com and schedule your session today.
Authenticity is attractive. And I don't mean in the sense of attraction,
like sexual romantic attraction.
Yes,
but
but just that energy attraction, whatever that is. I'm always amazed at people. The people I want to be around the most now are the ones who are most comfortable in their own skin and most comfortable in being not only themselves, but their like best self. And kind of why we're doing this today is I don't want to be a fraud, I don't want to hide what I am and what I do and where, I look at something that has given a significant benefit to my life, and keep it a secret. I've been in some of the, whether it's meeting or presentation or, big rooms, C-level suite, all those, I love that. That gets my energy going because I can't compete anymore. I'm terrible. So, athletically or whatever that is, I can't do what I do. My brain says, do this. And my body's like, no. But that was my, sales when I started, and that's how I started in life. Really, I mean, accounting, finance, and then kind of got really lucky, and then segued in to business development. But I competed every day. I was winning, or I was learning. Again, I know it's cliche. I just don't use it. I'm not losing shit. No way. Like, I'm going to take whatever data that was the thing that I didn't like, because that must be part of the process for me to get the thing I want. So the negative to me becomes a step. Ooh, excuse me, I shouldn't hit the table. But it becomes a step rather than the result, right? So not something I could always do. That's an evolution, of how
mind shift, like you said.
I'm all about that, because I truly think I was playing like in a paint charity event. It's a great organization. Veterans Count, and they do Swim with a Mission and all these different awesome programs, throughout New Hampshire. And my father-in-law is a big benefactor to these things, or at least donator and supporter. And I've had an opportunity where we're like, hey, Steve, you're on a paintball team with a bunch of Navy SEALs, and you're going to play, like capture the flag. And I was like, this is the greatest day ever. But you also get to have some really cool dialogue with people who are experts in managing stress and mind shifting. Now, different level of why, of course, and, what the results are. But because it's so matter of fact in regards to that result, like life or death, that was the first exposure I had to breathing. And I remember the guy telling me, he's like, yeah, we do a box breathe. He goes, I love doing it 7 seconds in, hold for 7 seconds, 7 seconds out. Do it 3 times. And you will feel your whole biochemistry will change, Steve. You'll feel totally different. I'm like, yeah, bullshit, right? Like, I'm just going to go out and shoot people. Like, this is awesome. I'm going to try and get myself a SEAL here and start bragging all over the world. Like, I paintballed and shot a Navy SEAL, Not going to happen. But that was so, I tried it. Like, I was upset about something. I don't know what it was. And I remember sitting there, and I was just having, like, I couldn't get the thought out of my head, and I did it. And I was like I felt different. I like physically.
Biochemically changed your fucking body.
I was different in about 63 seconds.
Yeah.
And I was like, why have I never done this? Why, and it took the credible guy of, I'm going to listen to anything this guy says about how to manage stress, blah, 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 because, either they're, functional sociopaths or they've figured something out. That's probably a mix of both.
Yep.
But in the same sense, it worked. It just worked.
How old were you? Like when you said the breathing, and then, it's like the cannabis was a part of it.
So, my entry into cannabis was one of, the traditional, we were high school, college, that was just around, I graduated in 1995, which was the closest thing to a classic music, classic rock, like the only bands that were being listened to when I was in high school were Led Zeppelin, the Grateful Dead, Pink Floyd, all of the classic 70s, the Grateful Dead. We were in the Doors, that was our entire playlist, which was, a book of CDs that we were slapping in. People always talk about text and driving. I'm like, shit, I used to have like a CD booklet flipping, eating McDonald's and trying to,
driving
distraction.
Stick.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So, but that was my entry, but I didn't understand why. And again, I was my poor parents, because, again.
You graduated in 95?
I graduated high school in 95.
Graduated high school in 95.
That was you play with it like that, and, socially, whatever. And we had a really eclectic group of friends. It was all the athletes, all the, what were the headbanger kids, and, even some of the, more, for lack of a better term, kind of that, like the crunchy style kid. All of that was a melting pot because we had cannabis.
That's really cool.
And so there wasn't like these click. The click was, do you or do you not? That was really the reality.
Where did you grow up? What
I
town?
grew up in Derry, New Hampshire.
Derry.
Yep,
Okay.
went to Pinkerton Academy and loved Pinkerton. You know, like I loved my high school experience mostly because it was, again, it was still early 90s. You know, it wasn't. We didn't have all this information, so it was still house parties and, you know, police pulling us over and asking us how the game was that Friday rather than what the hell are you doing? And, you know, it was a much more 80s style upbringing, you know, the early 90s than, say, the latter part of the 90s and especially, you know, into the 2000s. But, you know, that was really the entry. Never really thought about it I associated it like everyone else with, you know, drinking or whatever. It wasn't, you know, obviously it never, but it helped me because I wasn't a great sleeper. And I never thought of that, but I couldn't sleep. Like I never could sleep. And mostly because, you know, again, my brain would just race at night about nothing. I mean, not like I was coming up with, you know, ideas to save the world.
It's that the ADHD, you know,
obsess about some weird interaction you had that day and go over it 100 times in your head. And I didn't realize I was self-medicating. What I knew is I was generally more likable and pleasant without the chance of flying off the rails, you know, as that person. I was funnier, I was nicer, I was happier, I was that. But again, never thinking like, oh, I'm fixing what's wrong with me. Because again, my ego was out of control in the sense of who I thought I was, you know, like nothing's wrong with me, so I don't need to fix anything, you know. It was a weakness, you know, and again, I was trying to squash weakness wherever we could, you know.
Yes, sir.
And what a terrible way to, you know, function. I mean, just, and again, it can help you. You can win that way, you know, but not for long. It's not sustainable. So getting into the like benefit of it where it came, again, I was using, you know, pretty much my whole adult life. You know, that was the, you know, everyone went to bed. It's 10 o'clock. It's my time. Right. And I didn't realize what I was doing. And then when I really started to explore, again, we can kind of get into it, is the main property, you know, when it was not a cannabis purchase for me. That was not what we were looking at the time. I was always interested and was following, and I wanted to understand. I had done a couple applications in Massachusetts in like 2014, knowing it was never going to happen. I mean, you know, I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought the license might be valuable, so maybe I should try and get one. But didn't go through. They went to mostly, you know, the Massachusetts game went to mostly like politician family members and things like that. Like it was pretty ornery at the beginning. Like it was all inside stuff.
Oh, it was big time inside stuff. Yeah.
So when I knew that Massachusetts, I had worked in, you know, multiple industries through Massachusetts, and, you know, we knew how to like, oh, well, this guy's the one who makes the decision. You know, we should probably be really nice to this guy. You know, and it's just a different way to function business. And being a New Hampshire guy, so I love New Hampshire. You know, it was always in Maine similarly. You know, you get that person is very similar, you know, and I love that, right? You know, we're Northeast country folk, you know, and that's what I love. And I've lived in city, I love it all. But when I got into the property and we opened, my business partner, who is one of the great men I've met in my life, you know, just in regards to who he is as a just solid dude, you know, just salt of the earth type of guy, Elliott resident. I love him.
Yeah, Will Dunphy.
Will Dunphy. Just, you know, one of those guys you'd trust, you know, with anything. And
100%. You know, Will, for me, that's what got me excited about OG Cannabis, got me excited about the store. I've known him for, you know, a better part of, 8-9 years now, almost close to a decade. And like when I got my business started, he was one person who took a chance on me. He took took the product in on his store, and he is just a really solid dude and really good at what he does. And
for sure.
And that's, you know, it's cool how you guys, you know, got connected for this. As somebody who was, you know, looking to, you know, to get into this, it's cool how you guys got connected.
Yeah. So yeah, and honestly, we were running a company that we were servicing. I shouldn't say we, Will and I was running the facility management company, but we employed almost 1,000 people from Providence up through Portland, you know, and managing somewhere in the range of, it was like high 20s million square feet a night, you know, and had most of the hospitals and Wentworth Douglas and Dartmouth Hitchcock and all those. And they were good businesses, but we needed an office up in Maine. So we rented small space on 276. 236.
236.
My address was 276. So over at 384, and it was kind of like where we stored equipment and stuff like that. And once a month I was up there, and I meet with staff, whatever. But I kept driving by this property, and it was horrific in the sense of what it looked like, and it was it was a junkyard. I mean, that's what it was. So I kept driving by, and I remember I went into the town one day, and I, talked to the town manager, a previous guy, and he's like, yeah, we just, town water and town sewer, and kind of sold it on like, gosh, we'd really like to see that property flip over or whatever. And I thought it was just a wonderful investment. Just because of the municipal services that were coming on a road that had, close to 20,000 passengers a day. I'm like, this is, we've seen this happen before. I've seen this in my life. And this is good business. When you're bringing that service into commercially zoned area, 2 miles from 95, I mean, it's a win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when that vote went through, and they approved town water, and they approved sewer for down the line. I don't know if that happened in the same exact vote, but both of those things are happening now. They opted in for adult rec cannabis. And I remember a guy called me, and because immediately after we bought it, I put for sale because I knew what was coming. So that was the game. I mean, literally 5 days in. And that was the play. Is I go to the town, and I'm like, what, so everything's approved. Here's where we're at. And they're like, oh, well, we also opted in for adult rec cannabis. And I was like, and they're like, you have one of the largest lots in northern New England. And I was like, whoa. All right, maybe I should revisit this. But it was truly that kind of fortuitous, weird luck.
And it was adjacent to OG, to the med store.
No, med store wasn't there. Nothing was there. This
is before.
Dead property. I mean, I shouldn't say dead property. It was they used to like metal dumping. That was what they were doing there. Tractor,
So this was before. This was like 2004. This
was all 2019, 18, right about there.
19. Yeah, okay.
So I immediately knew Will was across the hall. And I talked to him a couple of times. Super cool guy. We had a colleague that we kind of knew of each other. And I went cold and walked. And I did, this is my function, right? I was like, oh, well, today I'm going to switch my life and do this. Again, I'm sure it drives my wife crazy. But I just saw it, and I was like, oh, we should really. So I went over to Will. And the pitch I made that day off of hearing from the town 7 minutes earlier, driving immediately straight over to 384 where his office was, knock on the door and walk in. And I said, hey, I know we haven't done anything together. We'd probably had 5 cordial conversations, a couple of meetings, something like that. Nothing about this. I was just curious, what he was doing, mostly because I liked cannabis, and this was a guy who had a lot of it, right? He had a delivery business in Elliott and all that time, and on the medical side.
No shop yet.
No shop. And I said, look, I have a scale house here that we could get flipped in, and maybe get a process through the town, but it's a 900 square feet scale house. Would you be interested in opening a medical store? And I'll go run it through the town. And again, not knowing what I didn't know, I thought it would be a traditional commercial project, take me 3 or 4 months, and we're up and running. So about a year later, and fighting every objection and possible. And again, it's Elliott's a wonderful town, and again, their municipal staff and administration is quite good. They have, but it's all new, so I can't expect somebody to have a expert knowledge of something that literally was delivered in an ordinance the day before.
Of course.
It's just not reality.
It takes time.
So everybody's nervous, and they don't want to make a mistake, and we totally got that. But we opened the medical store. I think it was the end of 2020, with the mindset of what are we going to do here? I wanted to get into the rec space because I knew we had that. We had cultivation tenants now on the property, and we're doing that as kind of a rent scenario. And that was Kind Farms, and they were there for, almost 5 years. Wonderful guys, great products, good stuff, like top notch, right? And I was like, this is great business. This is interesting. And as I just started digging deeper into the economics, not so much about what's happening now, or was happening at the time, I wanted to understand what was going to happen because it was just too volatile, and it made me nervous in regards to what could really happen. But having an expert retail operator and what Will has become, shortened the curve for us when opening the rec store. Plus, we knew, we had done a significant transition where we knew most of the market was I cultivate, I have a store, I sell what I cultivated out of my store, right? So more of like, call it the independent brewery model, right, of the delivery mechanism. So you have, I cultivate, it's a straight line right out the door, right, through their retail store. What we found was there was a lot of like same product, different packaging things going on. And I was like, well, that's a little interesting, but it makes sense. It's probably what I would do, like, okay, because you can't, people think like, oh, well, I'll grow 10,000 pounds. There's nowhere to go with it. You can't do that. You have to have distribution, and you have to have distribution in like 50 stores to, handle a couple thousand pounds, right? Mm-hmm. So, we wanted to understand, because at first we were like, we're going to build 1 million square feet and we're going to have, a cannabis business park. That was the initial thought process. Town changed some ordinances on what we were allowed to do, how many licenses, capping, tiers, stuff like that. So, mm-hmm. The goal was to be flexible through that, right? Not get too far down a road before we know what the industry is going to do. But the biggest messaging that I got that was kind of like a shift in, from the business side of it, not the personal, was Julie Cutting. And sitting with Julie, and I believe Will introduced us, or they had met at some, cannabis forum, something, and again, I hadn't been out in front of it. I was really behind the scenes and just trying to create the investment, create the valuation, and, hopefully, enter into a really cool new space that I was interested in.
Yeah.
But
Julie's great. Check out her episode, everyone.
Oh, yeah. I've actually watched that. She's just hilarious. So is Darren as well. So I don't want to leave him out.
Giddy out.
Julie was like, look, I'm a chef with one of the best restaurants in New Hampshire. I have been featured on, whether it's Chopped or Martha Stewart or all the shows, and, I'm an credible chef. I can't get, shelf space, or shelf space that I want. Or when I get into a dispensary, I'm in the bottom corner and I don't have that actual access to, and again, these stores would be crazy to push anything else because they have to get rid of what they just produced, and that has a shelf life. So then the thought process kind of came is, all right, Maine was the second to go medical in 99, which means you have some of the top cultivators in the world are kicking around, this wonderful state of Maine, and they're there. I mean, some of the flower, you even, like in movies, it was like, oh, we got it from Maine, like it was a thing. So how do we find 30 Julies? How do we find that boutique fire product? She's a, gold winner and, multiple levels of production, chocolate, cheesecake or baked good and edible, like top rated in New England, right?
Yeah, that stuff's really good.
Unbelievable. But having trouble, you have the best stuff and you have trouble getting shelf space. It just didn't add up. It didn't make sense to me. So again, stay flexible, deal with it. It was, we're going to take this true retail. We're going to find the best cultivators, the best manufacturers in the state of Maine, and we're going to promote them. Not OG, not our retail store. This is a retail buying experience that has been treated the same way as it was when it was illicit, other than the connectivity to the customer. Mm-hmm. So how do we take a transition into, and again, I'm pretty sure retail stores for the most part, at least in their domicile, where they're located, aren't going anywhere. That license will always have value. Someone will always take a run at it. Even if you have 10 in a town, before it becomes a non-cannabis business, 5 more people are going to try. Mm. So there was value in that aspect of it to me, of what we could potentially buy as those things started to happen. And again, trying to, through the medical store, I had, this awesome staff, Will's expertise, really high-end, knowledgeable bud tenders that understood the medicinal side of it. And we took that knowledge, or their knowledge, and we just had that implement what products we should put into the rec store. And through that, and again, then with our vendors, we're like, look, we're not playing the same game. So when you want to put your product into our store, we're going to send out 20,000 texts about your product. So we'd like it a little cheaper, or we'd like to have a price break here because one thing is not like the other. So play with us and we'll do this. And to a man, everyone, and female, and I just, as a company, everyone has said yes, and loves the model. And again, we know where we're located, being on a trifecta of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Maine, knowing what the quality of Massachusetts product versus Maine, and just again consumption. Because 5 milligrams versus my medical store, we could have 300 milligrams in a lollipop. Again, you don't want. It's not about that in that sense, but
for some people it is.
If you're catering to a
cancer patient
or somebody that has like poor receptors in their stomach, and there's plenty of those people out there. The person who's like, I tried it and it didn't do anything. That person used to hear that story a lot of years ago. People were like, that's weird. Well, that's your receptors aren't taking it in, so. Yeah, you have higher dosage modules. Well, again, in pricing and quality. So if you take all of those three things, which should be how you make every single decision in your buying process, and you combine them, you have a successful thing. And that's been the strength of our short time. Our medical store has done great, stuff. But
are you guys going to try? Are you going to be cultivating?
I look at cultivation more so from a OG as a company is not going to be a cultivator.
Right. Okay. So you'll still cultivate on the medical side just to do it because you guys have been doing it.
No. Even so, we have no current cultivation attached to our store, either store, medical or or the rec side. Will had a cultivation facility for a few years and stuff like that.
No longer doing that.
I think it was like 100 miles away, and it was just too hard to manage everything. So, but what I would like is input on product. And how it is marketed and how it is, that communication to the end user.
I think that you're really on with that, and how just changing the model and having a different like your story is great, and I want to talk just a little bit more about that, like how you before you were, you struggled with some stuff. Like you said, it's anger, right? So like anger was your number one thing, and cannabis helped you with that big time, right? Like it completely changed the outlook of.
I kind of went off on a tangent, so I apologize because the business more is where my mindset goes. But everybody knows what I'm doing in business, right? So that's out in the ether. It's there, I can wholeheartedly say but it was with that timing component because it was really. I have really close friends, and I remember this so specifically, and it doesn't paint me in the best light, but it was one of those moments where I said, like, when something happens, I go, right? The opportunity thing or that, say yes thing or whatever that is, but I could find a real defining moment in every single, kind of big switch in my life. And you have to be reflective, I think, to find those because you don't realize it in the moment. But, as I've done some, let's look inward. I had really close friends. I coached all these kids. I've been a basketball coach and football coach in New Hampshire for the youth, I'm going on like 15 years. It's a long time. I'm wrapping up. But some of the most wonderful experiences of my life, getting to share your child's experience with their friends, in real time. There's not much better than that.
Yeah, it sounds pretty fucking dope.
Yeah, and having these kids, they're, going to be college athletes and all, and they're like, they still text you coach or
right. Yeah, I still look up to you, still have that mentorship.
For me, that's what it's about.
You'll have that relationship for always, forever.
And I loved it. And I genuinely loved the coaching aspect in basketball and football. I truly did. But
did you like the technical aspect of it too?
It's everything. Yeah, cool. Honestly, there's no part of it I don't, other than maybe parents sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate. Look, if you're really transparent with parents about what your goal is, if you say everything's going to be fair and fun, as soon as it's not fair and fun, they're like, that's not fair and fun. So don't say that. I remember sending out an email, and again, I'll get myself in trouble, but I sent out something in like 4th grade, and I said, congratulations on your child making this team. These are the hardest teams to make in New Hampshire, blah, blah. I said, a couple things you should know. One, our practice is not designed for your child's enjoyment. 2, if your child is disruptive, we will fix it through cardiovascular activity. 3, hope everyone has a great time. But when you lay it out that way, you're not getting things about fairness and equality and fun and whatever that is. It was about, let's get better. Let's develop.
Good communication.
Again, you learn it because the first time you're saying fair and fun, and then, mom's not happy. So, as you go through it. And in this scenario, I remember they were playing like AAU basketball. This is my youngest son. I mean, he couldn't have been more 9 or 10. So 4 or 5 years ago? And I wasn't the coach. My son has an AAU coach, and he's now not, starting and wasn't, playing that great and stuff. But I still thought he was, he's my kid. He's doing great. The blinders, which I really try to be objective of when I coached my children. Always be harder on your own kid. Like I used to talk to him in the car. I'd be like, I love you, but I'm going to get on you tonight because otherwise no one's going to listen to me. Okay, I'm still dad when I get back in the car, but unfortunately, you get the shit tonight. But if you have it with them, then they know, and they're not like, "Why is Dad yelling at me?" No, I'm part of the process. Okay, so awful. I mean, one of the worst things I've ever felt myself do, and I've done plenty of bad things, but this one hurt me because I thought I was self-aware, and I thought I had a good picture on my mic on just who I was as an unbiased father. And clearly I was not. But I wrote a text to my son's basketball coach telling him, and he's a friend, so this guy, it wasn't like coach, but somebody I knew really well. And I literally sent the text and I was like, look, what's up with Nate? He's better than this kid, this kid, this kid. And they're all playing over him. Like, he kills these kids. And that was kind of but I listed the kids, 3 or 4 of the kids, right? But I'm talking to my son's coach, fairly private, whatever. Well, it gets back to one of the kids' parents who are my best friends and who I just genuinely love and care for. And then I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you that you would do that? Only because you didn't think anyone would see it. And that was the real reality of it. I was trying to steer an agenda for my child unfairly, and I was going to do it any way I could. Now, that process wasn't going through my head at the time. This was, hey, what the frig? Why isn't Nathan starting or whatever? That was the...
Yeah, just being a dad.
Yeah, an asshole. That's what I was being, if I look at it. But because it was unnecessary and it didn't matter. I have perspective. I have college-level athletes for other children. Why am I doing this? Why is this stressing me out so much? Why am I so...
Well, you want to be fair for your son, right?
But wound up over... But again, I knew it didn't matter, but it mattered that day to me, and I was going to make everyone feel it, like it was coming. And then having that get back to my friends and then having to address it. And I just felt so... I was so disappointed in myself. I thought I was better than that. Or at least I thought I had, the ability to shut that guy who I used to know off. And I couldn't. And I remember that was right about time of where meditation came into my life, where I was, what it was? I was going to be better. That's what I decided. I'm going to be better. I'm not this guy, I'm a good person. I'm a good businessman. I'm a good father. I'm a good coach. Why am I being a dick about a kid that I love like a son?
Yeah.
What am I doing to get my son? I was disgusted with myself. And it was a wake-up call of all right, what am I going to do to be better, right? So it started, again, meditation, breathing, all these things. Well, then I started talking to Will because it's all about that same time. And he sees my energy, he knows I'm crazy, I'm going 100 miles an hour and I want to smash everything in my way, and that was, how I proposed who I was and what we were going to do. And this is what I can do for us, that type of thing. And Will gave me one, hey, you should try this. And I forget what it was, a flower or something like that. And I was like, oh, that was great. What I didn't realize with cannabis, I knew I always felt a little different. And what I quantified that was it didn't work right because I didn't get what I wanted out of it. But I didn't know this product do all 3 different things. And I I mean, I got sativa, indica, you know, one's going to make me tired, one's going to make me, you know, more alert, whatever, you know, but the total, like, you know, 1995 view of what cannabis was. Never did I care to educate myself. That was not what I was doing. Well, as I started to get more educated, I was like, oh, you know, I read a lot of content, or if I'm doing a big presentation, I was like, wow, I like my focus is like laser. Or, you know, I'm watching a funny movie and this is the one I'm going to take. Or how to consume. Then it was only flower, you know, to find, you know, I think we've talked about like a delicious seltzer over ice at night that isn't going to give me a hangover and give me a much better feeling effect. And you know what? It's good for your body because it's a 1-to-1 with CBD. You know, like that messaging and narrative isn't out there or not enough. And that's something I want to change. But for me personally, getting through that little piece in my life where my wife looked at me like, what are you doing? And where my friends who I love were like, we thought you loved our child. Why would you say that? You know, and to me, in my mind, I wasn't doing anything to those children. I was telling his coach how good my kid was, right? You know, like that thing. And I remember thinking, I just have to change. Like, I can't be like this. Because for a week I was stressed out. Like, why isn't my son playing more? Never reflectively looking at it like maybe he shouldn't, whatever that is. I thought he should, so therefore he should. And that was a huge, and again, a pretty innocuous thing in your life, but for me was a changer. And because of it, because of what cannabis not only did, you know, for me through my 20s and 30s, because I definitely was self-medicating. I just didn't know why. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I liked it better that way. And I was also a fraud because, you know, I'm running a, you know, large corporation and, you know, I'm utilizing cannabis, you know, like no one talked about it even 10 years ago, especially in my generation's age group, secret.
So hidden.
3 years ago, even. So finding products that made me better at being a father, more patient, better at being a husband, less volatile, less just, you know, much of a dickhead to deal with, you know, or, you know, a better, steward of my community, better coach, it was just better. It was an enhancement. And no one had ever described it to me that way. And once I went through a pool of trying a bunch of different things, you know, I found a wonderful menu that fits me. And that's what I think everyone needs. And I think more now than ever in our country, world, populace, whatever we are, we could fix a lot of what ails the current environment through this wonderful presentation of the most beautiful products in the world. And guess what? You're going to have a lot of fun while you do it. Like, tell me, you know, we used to have to build think tank sales ideas, like we're like, okay, let's find the positive, negative, whatever. There is nothing I ever had in my toolbox to give to someone that I could honestly say, like, no matter where you are, what you're doing, what your lifestyle is, there is a specific product and a result that will benefit your life. Even if it's just helping you sleep a little better or helping you relax or helping you be more patient. You know, you can look at patience two ways. So for me, it's made me so much more observant, right? I'm looking at things that I wouldn't normally look at. And I don't mean like, oh, look at the tree. It's not what I mean. It's situationally. You know, I could watch my son outside, you know, like let's say I look out the window and he's hitting a stick against a tree, which every boy has done at some point, to break a stick, right? You know, previously I might have looked at that like, oh, what is he doing? The stick's going to break and he doesn't know it's going to hit him right back in the hands, you know, like, or think of bust off and hit him in the eye, or stop hitting that tree. I like that tree. That's a good tree. Let's not, you know, take all the bark off the side. You could have 100 thoughts about that. I had this exact scenario happen to me where, because I like broke it down, I was able to be reflective almost in the moment where I'm like looking at my son. He's out there just whacking that thing against the tree. And I'm thinking to myself, I watched him for like 3 minutes. I'm like, I love this kid so much. Isn't that awesome? I remember doing that. I remember hitting that tree. You know, like, never would that have been. It made me observe it in real time and being able to enjoy moments rather than they're just inconsequential moments. It's just a kid hitting a tree. Why am I watching this? Go do something. No, I'm going to watch him. Like, I like that piece of it.
You want to know what I think is the most special part about that is that for me, like you're saying, is it's very, I have similar experiences for sure, is that you have that perspective shift. And we know when it happened, and that's what I call it. I call it a perspective shift.
Sure.
And so that happens, in real time. And then you take that when you're not, enhancing, when you're not using, and you apply it to your life. So like the next day when you wake up in the morning and there's no cannabis in you at all, and you're just like, oh shit. Like I'm still looking at my son. I still do those things, and so it's so incredible that you can take it with you and you can actually change your mind. It helps you.
It helps you evolve.
It helps you evolve, exactly.
And it is
grow.
an evolution. Mm-hmm. An evolution towards something. I'm not sure where it goes. What I am sure is my body feels a ton better. I'm rarely as sore. I still try and do things that I probably shouldn't do. It's more just the peace of mind and mental health being such an issue these days and really a challenging one. And, to play the chemical process of, this will shut that off, but you're doing this forever, or this will enhance this, but you're doing this forever. And, it's going to mess with your liver and everything. And if you ever wanted to get off it, it's going to take you 18 months to wean, we've created such a stigma, and I know you and I have talked about this, but the stigma of cannabis is unfair. It's not real, and it's something that was, a placated narrative of, an agenda.
Yeah, created by that overreach, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we could find a, parallel now, I'm sure, but, the Silicon Valley companies of the 20s and 30s, when cannabis was, put on a, legal list, were the tech companies of their time. And they didn't care about cannabis, but they were terrified of hemp. They were terrified. I mean, this was their, this was the largest industry in the U.S., the paper, forestry mills, and media.
Cotton.
And they were all owned by the media companies. So they were going to make that. That was, it's going to happen.
Yeah, DuPont.
I mean, look, we can go DuPont.
Industrial hemp,
So, it's what I want to get kind of across. And again, as I get in front of this and knowing, what my background is and how I've always presented myself to everyone is, this was never part of my narrative. That was just something people didn't notice. Or maybe they did. I don't know. Nobody ever said anything to me, so that was nice. But again, an enhancement. I don't look at, like I told you the other day, I don't like the words high or stoned. I don't.
Right, negative connotation.
It doesn't describe what I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are products that can describe that. It's not what I take.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I wouldn't, because sure, that's a what a fun heavy indica and watching a movie. Have a blast. But that wasn't how I was trying to approach it. And as I started, just through observation of the med store and being like, wow, this MS patient has so much success, or kid on CBD loses a tick or a neurological disorder, and I'm like, what? I live in a town where, there's a ton of people who work in big pharma and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I afraid to get out in front of something that has helped me so much in my personal life? Just be a better person, better businessman, better father, as I say. I mean, across the board. While, pharma's, killing a half generation of people. Where, how am I stuck in this? And I thought I was a more confident person that I would be like, screw it, I'm out in front of it, and maybe I'm not that, but today I am. So this is the swing.
I love it. You were having trouble dancing.
Yes.
Giddy up.
Great analogy.
And
I don't know if I'm ready to dance. I'd love to feel that. I'd love to shut that thing off, where you could turn off all self-consciousness of who you I don't care about perception. Probably been one of the bigger challenges of my life.
Yes, sir. Come to a show with me. Come to dance with me, and
Dance it away.
it will happen, man. I'm telling you, because
That's awesome.
it is really cool. The effect, like you said, people just they start dancing with me, and you've had this effect on on yourself, and it's like it's really cool that you're out here saying this, because we need people like you, people who like we're afraid that are that can help people understand, that can help bridge that gap. Like, that's why I got into this industry, and why it's it's a product that I serve. Dr. BeeWell is a wellness company, but I have a cannabis product, and that's because it's helped me so much personally in my life. And I had those same things, man. I have an addiction background, and taking that step to being like, hey guys, guess what? This actually is healing me. This is helping me heal. Like, without this, I would be in a worse place. And you're actually telling me, so it's even worse than that. For people in addiction, they say the best model is the white knuckle, completely,
Totally disagree.
abstinence model, abstinence only model. And I just could not, I feel like I'm a part of that movement that is showing people in real time that that's not the model, that's not the way. And the amount of people now that I have come up to me and ask me to help them replace alcohol with cannabis and like a replacement. It's like back in the day, if you'd say that 10 years ago, people would be like, oh, you can't replace it 1-to-1, it's a replacement. It's like, man, guess what? I'm saving that person's life, literally saving their life, because I'm giving them something that's going to make them think more, that's going to make them, have different perception, that's going to make them feel good and make them get away from the,
socially conscious of just what's around them.
What's around them, man. So it's like, I'm so glad that you're a part of this mission, and that that you found this, and that there is someone like you who, because there's a lot of people in this that are just looking to make a buck, and they don't have a personal connection to it. They just are, have deep pockets, and that we don't want, sir, deep pockets have to come to bring some industry and stuff like that, but we just don't want that to be the we want us to be associated with that win.
The why has to be integrated.
So yeah, a lot of companies do that right now. It's so funny. So many companies have these big brands, like you're saying. What you're trying to say is so beautiful, because so many companies have these big brands, right? And then they create all these brands that don't have a backstory, that have nothing. So you ask, and they're all being produced and just repackaged in the back, and it's the same stuff. And you're like, what story are you trying to tell here? How are you trying to connect with your customer? How are you trying to? This is an industry that is so new, that is going to be way different in 10 years from now. And you guys are doing nothing but just repackaging product and giving it to them. It
would be the antithesis of any other standard business in America. You would not take your Apple computer and call it Cucumber. You don't do it, because they're buying a name, and most of these companies are phenomenal companies that make incredible products, better than most of the country. Truly, I believe that. We've been around. I don't understand. I shouldn't say I don't understand. I understand why they have to. It's not something sustainable to me, because you shrink who wins, right? Because in that model, you're going to have 2 or 3 that win. And it crushes everyone else, because the 2 or 3 that win are doing that off of their base of what their brand originally was. And the people that hone to that, and there are great companies that do that in Maine. I mean, Firefly is, one that, they're producing a lot of product, and it is so well received, and it's everywhere, And when you start to look at, the people that have entered the space, so that would be like your larger conglomerate, right, that's coming into that, or versus a smaller cultivator or a manufacturer that just has a great product. And there's room for both of those. But for the for that situation to be driven from conception to end user, there's 4 steps in that model. And if you own all of them, at the end of the day, to me, that person at the end isn't getting the best. And I only say that because you can't worry about producing the best flower in the world if you're worried about your store selling it. And if you're producing the best flower and you're okay with putting it in a lesser package, I don't know what the message is, other than confusion. Now, that is almost the standard. So I don't want to, by any means, mess around in the state of Maine with how it's currently doing. But I think everybody sees we have to be flexible, and retail and cultivation can be owned by the same person, but they cannot. It's very difficult for that success model unless you were one of the first few stores that opened in Maine in 2020. That worked. Those people killed it because it was the only place to go.
It was the only place people could get get cannabis, and the wholesale was so behind everyone. If you had the licenses and you were up, and not even the licenses, but a lot of people had licenses. If you had the get-go, if you had the energy, if you had the building, if you had everything up and running, then you're definitely far ahead. And but I agree. I just don't think it's
It's the standard right now.
Yeah, it's a standard right now, and I think too, like, just based on your point of like, hopefully people will not, you can be good at both. I think you can be good at growing and extracting in the plant and retail store. You can be good at all of it, but like you're going to be better if you focus on one, and or a
I would
couple.
agree. I would think, retail is a beast, one that has had hundreds of years of data and background on how, right? You're not reinventing the wheel. You're not. What you're trying to do is find that consistent standard that people are familiar with. It was one of the reasons when we designed the store, I said, look, when I walk into this is my experience. So when I walk into a dispensary, first of all, because it's not, even though I use all the time, like something I've been familiar with my whole life, I don't feel comfortable because I don't know what everything is. And there's just names of large, fun words that mean nothing to me. Love them. Think it's great, but again, as a 40-something man walking into a dispensary, I'm confused. So a lot of colors, a lot of lights, a lot of things spread out. They'll have flower here, pipe, vape, it's everywhere, but it's all like thrown at you. Everything's online. You want to pull up a phone, now so I'm downloading your menu here. Okay. All right. I'm doing that. So I literally went into it with the mindset and, obviously with extensive input from my business partner, Will. But the wonderful part about him is he lets me kind of, be creative and, take real world what I see, and this is how I invest too. When I invest in a company, it's because I like it, not because I'm looking at bottom line or whatever. I'm like, oh, I think I like this, and I'm a generalist, so other people would like it, maybe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But when, I'm looking at how we were going to roll out, I was like, look, put all the flour on one shelf, put all the edibles on one shelf, group them together.
Yeah.
And we need a flow. And with whatever stores we do next, it will be the same. If I went into, let me ask you, if you went into a Walgreens, I don't know if you use Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS, whatever, but as a pharmacist, right? Previous life of what we do. If they moved all the shelves, supermarket, whatever, if they moved all the stuff around, you'd be like, what the hell did you just do to me?
Yeah, it's nothing better than going to like a Hannaford's and it being like the same model of Hannaford, so you know exactly where everything is. It's a giddy up, right?
Nobody wants to, look, as much as I'd love everyone to come into my store and have a party, they want to get in, they want to buy, they want to have a good experience, they want to buy their product and get out.
Yeah, good, efficient experience, that's it.
That's retail. Mm-hmm. That's the model. That is what people have spent billions of dollars, billions and billions trying to figure out. And
yes, sir.
They figured it out. It's pretty standard. So I wanted to play that game. I want to be a retail provider that makes cannabis shopping easy. We want to find products for the, and we talked a little bit about this as well, but, the way into entry markets, right? The way to, get people off alcohol, which is happening. I mean, nationally, numbers in alcohol consumption is down more than 10%, and in states where there is a rec market for cannabis, opioid use is down. Like that data is real.
It's real, yeah. That's
real data. So, how do we get, that we wanted to make a store for the connoisseur and the connoisseur's mom, that's sending them in there to get them a gummy so they can sleep at night. And they're all out there, right? But, I mean, it's hard pressed to find somebody. And clearly with your audience, I doubt we'll have people that are listening that are, non-users maybe. Maybe there are.
There's a couple for sure.
Good. Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we need to get them,
Start using a little bit. It's not a panacea. It's not for everyone. but it is for more. I say it's for more people than not. And if you're drinking alcohol and you're using, alcohol as a social to understand your body better and to just have a little bit of fun, it should definitely be replaced with cannabis. But yeah, no, I don't think it's for everyone.
And I would probably disagree a little bit.
Yeah?
Only because maybe they just haven't found the type that works for them.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't reflected enough to know where the benefit could be. I don't think you can know anything until you've tried something.
I don't disagree with you there. I think that people, if we lived in like a different society and a different culture, then everyone could find some type of benefit in it. What I mean is like if things are going like pretty good for you and you don't feel like you're an asshole, you feel like you love your family, you're financially stable, you can get creative. I don't know if it's always like 100% necessary. But I agree. It could be an enhancement. I agree.
Or a modular use.
Mm-hmm.
All those people have bad days.
Right. Yeah, that's so true.
All those people have, trauma, have, life experience, have this. How about this, right? Let me, because I'll counter you with this. Most medical studies would say that, laughing once a day is incredibly good for your health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're not a laugher. Maybe you're serious. Maybe nothing's wrong. You're successful, happy with your marriage. But what if I could put a little laughter into your life? A little more. What does that do? What's the value of that? I don't think we know that. And I think for mental health, look, I don't think we know anything. So I go at it from that. I feel like right now we're starting to scratch the surface of how does this melon thing work, right? Just scratching it. So when I look back and think about, where this would have been, hyper effective for me, super effective would have been in those times when I was most self-involved and worried about me. I thought everything was great. Depression, which is such a real thing. I've been depressed, but I've never felt depression.
Mm-hmm. I
felt disgust or, like what's wrong, all those emotions. But that one, and I think I may have been, if I couldn't have shut down, the synapses in my brain every once in a while.
Yes.
If I had just let it go, that thought process, I feel like that's what I fixed with myself in my 20s. I didn't know what I was fixing, but I did. Poorly. And with a bunch of, whatever, illicit product or whatever that is. But, seeing how dialed in they are now with what AI is doing with the cannabinoid and this particular piece does this and genetics and how it affects. And, watch what pharma's going to do with it. It's coming. It's going to be, this is, THC for XYZ, and there are going to be so many products.
I want to ask you about that.
Sure.
Because you're a New Hampshire guy, and you're a big business guy. You've seen it. So what you think Big Pharma's coming, and you think that's all they're gonna take the market over, or how do you see, what do you think's gonna happen in New Hampshire, and what do you think's gonna happen nationally?
Again, and it's all conjecture of where that goes, but logic will tell you where the money is where it will go, and then you're looking at Big Pharma, Big Beverage, Big Tobacco. Those are your most likely players into the space. Pharma being the most logical because most of everything they do is based off synthesized plant medicine. That's,
right, it's pharma.
I know a guy, and every once in a while I see him, in Bedford or whatever. He's like, yeah, I'm taking a 2-month trip to the Amazon. We're just searching for plants we haven't found. That's literally part of the pharmaceutical process, so the difference being is how complex the cannabinoid is and what it can do. And we all know pharma they don't do any in-house real research. They may, but it's not public research. So they'll put that out to a contract research organization that's going to get all the data for them, and they defer liability of the data, and it comes back to them. But pharma can't sell something that says, hey, this does sleep and, inflammation. They have to define what they are putting into a pill, medicine, whatever, and it's got to have one action.
Well, yeah, to get it to, to get approval, the process to get approval, to get a drug FDA approved, you need to have an indication. So you need to tell,
you would know more than I would.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's what I'm explaining to the audience exactly, and I guess you get the benefit a little bit because you're here too.
Educate me.
So you'll take a drug on, you're gonna, and that's why single molecules are always best, because they're easier to predict what's going to happen with the the indication, and it's the numbers are so tight to get drug approval in terms of like it working for 6 patients. Because it was worded correctly, because they understood it the best. Those 6 patients on a study that's even powered to to thousands of people. Those 6 patients could really have an effect. So you want to make sure that the swing is so small from it being more effective or less effective than placebo. It's so the margin is so small. So they do everything they can, and with cannabis, specifically, they will do that. Eventually, it can become used for off-label use, and then it can get other indications. And so there are drugs that have multiple things that they treat for sure, and that they're used for multiple things. But to get drug approval, yes, 100%.
And that didn't happen at the same time.
It didn't happen at the same time, right?
So it's an add-on.
It did happen at the same time, but they had to study. They had to study it, and they had to do different things within the study. Gotcha. It's a lot more challenging, and it makes it harder to get approval.
Well, then I'm glad I read the article correctly. I think
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did a good job of explaining 100%.
It's just, but a logical play for them. You're going to have something that can do a lot. And we don't even know all the things that I think it can do. I mean, you see the studies out of like Australia where they're playing with a little bit more in R&D and, taking traditional RSO and rubbing it on skin cancer, and they're seeing a, stops viral transmission.
That's amazing.
Like, what the hell just happened here?
Yeah.
And you see that. And I think in cancer, I think that's probably where you're going to see, you've seen really cool studies in regards to, THC injected into tumor and what the result is, and just tumor killing. It's pretty remarkable. So obviously there's a large run and there's a lot of money in cancer. So who knows? But yeah, pharma's coming in, beverages coming in. And so, I know that for a fact.
I know beverage is definitely coming. Pharma, I feel like they will come. I don't know if they'll be successful.
I think some of those conversations are already happening. I think it's happening now.
Oh yeah, they're ready, and it's 100% happening. That's why the legislation is happening, and they're trying to move the laws along and try to reschedule it. And it's already, the reschedule's already happened. So that's why So
that's
that was completely
paradigm shift.
Yeah, that was completely dictated by not entirely dictated, but pharma okayed that. They said, okay, yeah, we can work within this, so let's start here.
They see a profit margin. I mean, and again, they will. I don't know necessarily if they come over and, consume what, because again, I really don't believe we're going to be selling, cannabis products out of CVS, Walgreens, or, you decimate, thousands of businesses across the country. Rather than giving them a lifeline of something that they were ahead of the game. They were right before the government was. And so I think there's a reward that comes with that.
There's got to be, there's got to be some type of, and I don't know what it's going to look like. You're right. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's nationally. What do you think about New Hampshire?
I think New Hampshire is in, there's too many chefs in the kitchen. New Hampshire is notorious for being, legislatively heavy, and with the size of the House, and it's just, it's
a lot of different opinions.
Ridiculous. I think your current, with Sununu, and I've had these conversations. This is he was a not on my watch guy. He said that flat out to me, at an event, and I was like, okay, which was fine with me because I'm in Maine, and we're a border state. And those things matter early on.
Yeah, they definitely do. Big time.
Now, at the end of the day, it won't matter at all. But right now, it matters. And especially when you're doing cross-sale promoting. There's a reason, a lot of people come up from Massachusetts to New Hampshire to buy alcohol. It's cheaper. Well, same reason a lot of people come up to Maine, right. Whether it's Massachusetts or New Hampshire. So I think New Hampshire will so highly regulate it in the sense of how it's distributed will be map up very similar to alcohol sales and how they manage that, which makes then you have price capping. So now you have cultivators that are told what they can sell their product for.
And no one's going to want to do it.
Well, it's not going to cater to the high-end market. And again, that might be okay, especially as you start taking, call it the raw materials out of the plant and putting it in other products, right? So now the reason I think beverage might be the biggest player is because I truly believe this product is almost designed to be consumed in a beverage. Like, look, everyone loves their own thing, but for the masses, in regards to usage, especially.
What do you mean, like do you mean like designed by the being who designed it, like into nature? Because like it's a smokable thing, right? Like where
for sure.
Okay,
Let me correct myself. The easiest delivery mechanism to the masses. Look, no one's
and safest is beverage. It's
99% of people aren't going to start smoking.
Right, exactly. Right, exactly.
It's taken us years to get
exactly
that out of
100%. I agree.
know, so, and again, it comes with all that additional stigma with it sometimes, right?
Yeah.
You have to be proud to, smoke a pre-roll and walk into a building, because whether you like it or not, everyone in that building knows what you just did.
Yeah,
so
right.
You have to be okay with that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And
a lot of people aren't, never will be. And just people don't want to smoke. So 100% I agree with you.
Nor would
beverage.
But also still same scenario of, you're not going to have a couple of beers and walk into some place and expect no one's going to know that,
right.
You're going to have that.
Right.
So it negates the environments in which some people will step into. I'm such a believer in the adult use market and what that is and the benefit to, not to overkill it, but humanity in that regard, that I want to find palatable ways for adults to try it. And the beverage market is the most applicable habitual action that they're familiar with, because it comes in the same size can.
Yep.
You hold it the same way. I do it at the same time. I play, it's a social thing with, or I'm at a barbecue with, or so on and so forth.
100%.
Well, that's the easiest transition off of alcohol to something that would make them feel like, oh my gosh, am I going to be all weirded out? What is this going to do?
Right.
Take it at your own pace.
Yeah, man.
And I want, look, you're not trying to promote things. Yes, I am, right? I'm not saying come to my store and buy this. What I am saying is this particular, avenue for me, and I think for a lot of people that are currently, rifling down different types of meds and whatnot, this is a play. And if you just explore a little bit, the worst case scenario is you're going to have a lot of fun. Like that's what you're dealing with.
But I love it. The worst case scenario, you're going to have a lot of fun. And I think that's, what you and I have done here today. We've had a lot of fun.
I have.
And so where can the people find you?
Yeah, we're OG Cannabis in Elliott, Maine. We are on 18 American Way. We have a property up there that I don't think is like anything else in the cannabis retail experience. So from small live music events that we host to larger venue things that we're doing. But we're right over the border and, from New Hampshire. We're 2 miles off of 95 and we're 10 minutes from Massachusetts. And we have what I think is the best curated selection of products in Maine. And we'd love to have you.
Giddy up, guys. You heard him. Get on over to OG Cannabis. It is honestly, for me, I always shoot straight with you guys, and it is honestly, one of my favorite stores. It has been since its existence. I was at a comedy show there a couple of weeks ago, and it was awesome. The live, the what they're trying to do over there with getting people there and what will eventually it will become is going to be incredible. So make sure you check it out. Go on their Instagram, follow their Instagram. Get on over there to check them out. Steve, it has been absolutely awesome to have you on the show today, man. You are awesome. You have a good soul. You're an I love your honest take on this. We need people like you in this industry. We need people like you in this world. So I appreciate you so much, man. Everyone, we will see you guys next time. We'll see you next week. Giddy up.